Hey everybody, welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I'm your host, Marquez Mosher, and this is my co-host, cohort, and eldest son, Austin Mosher. He and I always seem to bring out the feisty side of each other, and it leads to some very spirited conversations. There's never really any one topic. We see the world from many different perspectives, and sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. Either way, it gets very interesting, so sit back, relax, and have a bit of fun at our expense as we explore some of the most unexpected perspectives you'll ever hear about the world we live in. So, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the Marquez Says Show. This is Marquez. Here's my co-host, my cohort. He's right there.
Austin Jordan.
And today we have a special guest. We have Schara, singer-songwriter Schara. You'll hopefully be hearing a lot more about her soon. She is pop recording artist from Vancouver, Canada, and quite honestly, I came across her in another podcast forum, and they were asking about guests, and she seemed really interesting, and her music actually ended up being really good too. So we
That's
decided,
always a huge plus.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you know.
Had your music not been very good, I don't know. I may not have. It may have been a different, of course. But in any case, go ahead, say hello, Schara.
Hi, yeah. I mean, people are always surprised when my music's good, and it's really funny because I totally relate. There's a lot of people out there that have really bad music.
That's true.
Unfortunately, and in the pop world, it really can go either way. It's one of those things that sometimes you just never know. So, yeah. But yeah, that was actually one of those ones where that was kind of why I had you talk to Austin, because I was like, hey, go check her out. Make sure and see if it's okay and stuff. Is it really, because otherwise I'm like, nah, we don't want to have her on if it's not going to be any good. But
yeah,
well, totally. That's kind of interesting too, because in music there's kind of like an elitist mind state, right, for the mainstream, because it's like you don't see that in other forms of art. Like if you have a friend tells you they draw or paint or whatever, it's very encouraging, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. I want to see that. Like, oh my God, that looks so awesome. But if somebody tells you that, like, oh, I make music, and they're not like a mainstream artist, it's or something, if it's somebody with a huge name, you are significantly more hesitant to be like, oh yeah, that's probably going to be really good or whatever. There's like a wall, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, you immediately go exactly like when you probably tell people stuff, that whole imposter syndrome, because it's real more, I think, for musicians, just because the expectation is it's probably not going to be very good if you don't have a following, if you don't have a name. But
yeah, for sure. I think that people put out a lot of music in the world because it's so easy now, and I think that's kind of why that's happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the barrier to entry is like non-existent at this point.
Speaking of which, how did you get started? I know that you've been, according to the bio and stuff, you've been in music since you were a kid, since you were a child. How did it evolve? How did it become more and more into the place where you're at now?
Yeah, no, I've always done music since I was a kid. I literally just came out of the womb like, I'm going to be a singer, Mom. And yeah, I just followed my passion. I mean, it's something that I can't live without. There's literally nothing else I'd rather do in this life. So really, that's just my driving force.
Yeah, that's definitely, I grew up, I grew up in music. My parents always had music around. Then I just got into it, and then like I said, when I was actually 14, my first job was in a record store, so the music was always there. I had an unofficial, I was official rule that at one point with the kids at the house, we had a pool table in the pool room, and they were not allowed to be in there unless there was music playing. Like if they were playing pool and stuff, they had to have music on and stuff. I hated a quiet house. I had to have some sort of music and stuff on. So obviously, it translated into one of them. The other three love music too, but yeah, this one over here takes it a little bit further. So,
oh, is this your kid?
Yeah, this is my oldest son.
We don't act like that when we're doing business stuff. We don't act like that when it has to do with the podcast and all that.
Yep, absolutely.
That's very cool.
So when I say that,
it.
it's kind of. He goes by Austin Jordan, obviously, which is funny because I go by Marquez Mosher. That's actually my middle name, and that's his first and middle name. And my oldest daughter, his sister, just goes by her first and middle name because she does modeling. So it's interesting how
what's that say about your last name?
I know. Well, I did it on purpose. I knew when I named you guys, I was kind of thinking ahead. I'm like, okay, if they want to drop the last name, I'm cool with that. Maybe I can give them stage names that will work so they don't have to actually change who they are. So
yeah, totally. Well, that's cool. That's super cool.
Talk about future thought. That's overthinking, but hey, that's.
Well, it worked out though.
That's true.
But it's cool though to hear about how passionate you've always been about music, because especially what you were saying earlier, to piggyback off of that, is it's so easy to do something nowadays that people do it just because it's easy. But you do it because you love it, and that's important, and it translates, and you can tell you love it when you listen to your music because it doesn't sound phoned in, you know? It doesn't sound like you just kind of showed up and did it. It sounds like you actually cared and you put effort into it, and, you know, and you can feel that sort of thing. At least I can. I don't know if everybody can, but I feel like I would say that everybody can feel that.
At some level.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who do music, well, first of all, music is not easy, but the fact that you can release music easily is the problem. So I think people who are just doing it because, oh, you know, like they're bored or whatever. And I think a lot, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that music isn't necessarily like, you know, super artistic. You have to have a passion, right? You have to have a passion to do it. And I think, yeah, like the whole, you know, era of music has changed where everyone's easily accessible to do it, but that doesn't mean that it's always good. I think people with passion are like who make music. I think that's the stuff that's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Stuff that lasts. You talked about like what would be your favorite era as far as if you had to pick one. Is there any particular one?
That's a cool question. That
you like if you could go back and be in it. Whether that was like big band or Motown or hair metal, what would you love to be in?
Oh, grunge for sure.
It's a good answer.
Nirvana is like, I'm wearing a Nirvana shirt. Not sure if you can
there
see.
There you
go. Like, yeah, I mean, I was like barely alive when they came out. So I wish I was like older when they came out.
Yep. It's funny because I have that, I'm at that I call it the sweet spot age where I'm not old yet. No, I'm not. Oh. But obviously certainly not young. And I literally a lot of times now when you go back 20, 30 years, which is kind of like when you start talking about oldies and stuff like that, like I lived through that. So I get to do it twice. Not only do I get to do it the original time when they come back in fashion. A little side note, my wife and I have been taking lots of trips to Washington and we've been visiting a city near Aberdeen. And if the Nirvana fans out there, that's Kurt Cobain's hometown.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of still very much as he described it then. So
he's a big influence. I'm obsessed with Kurt and Nirvana. I still listen to them.
Yeah, they were.
That's cool.
They were much more influenced. See, I do have to admit, I didn't jump on that bandwagon right away because they were the ones who quote unquote killed hair metal, and of course that was my main thing.
That was back when he had hair.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to admit, now I look back now, we were actually with Stone Temple Pilots that was playing that I paused when we came in. So, you know, that was a little bit of that genre. My Pandora's all over the place. So, So now what are you doing? Like if when you're singer-songwriter, does that have a lot of influence on what you do now? Or because, you know, being in quote unquote the pop world or the songs that you've had, do you have that in the back of your mind, that kind of the grunge sound, or is it kind of like whatever hits you, whatever inspiration you have?
A bit of both. Like I didn't write Real Love, actually. I just, I do write, I'm a songwriter, but that song my label sent to me and I just really fell in love with it because it's about fuckboys and I like really, I really relate to that. So, you know, guys who mess you around. So
there is a lot of them.
Yes, there is. So
see, I'm glad I'm out of that now.
Yeah, I related to it. So we ended up doing it just because I felt like I wrote it, even though I didn't. But yeah, no, I'm a singer-songwriter. I write all my songs normally. And it's kind of like a mixture. Like I'm always trying to incorporate like a fusion of sounds. But obviously sometimes some like stuff just hits you, right?
Right.
Yeah. It makes it, I'm one of those people that I'm creative in my head, but I cannot get it out, whether it's writing, singing. The only thing that I think I get creative is how many times I can try to figure out a different business to try to go with. And that drives my wife crazy. So that's probably about it. It's good that she kind of reins me in. But I always have, like you talked about, I don't know how involved like your family is in with your music, but with the different things that Austin does and that my daughter does and so on and so forth, I find myself literally putting on different hats of like, okay, would this be like a pseudo manager hat and you want me to give you feedback? Or do you want me to give you feedback as a dad? Because they're totally different subjects. They're going to be totally different perspectives. I don't know, how much does your family play a part in that?
Well, I came from a single mom and she's a writer, like she does TV and film.
Okay.
And she's always been super supportive of my career. So, like without her, I definitely wouldn't have continued music because it's a pretty rough path. So you need a big support system. So yeah, I mean, she's not hands-on in the sense of like, because she's not musical at all. Like she's actually clinically tone deaf. So,
Oh, wow.
so she's not musical, but like, you know, she's very supportive and like she's hands-on when it comes to the support system.
So she kind of gives you the nod when you say, "How's this sound?" She's like, "Sure, yeah, that sounds great."
No, I don't even ask her about that. No, more so like, you know, like the shady record execs and like, you know, bad managers and bad PR, just like, you know, the shady side of the music industry. She's more supportive of, you know, like gives me the support system.
Yeah, how do you feel about the back end of the music industry? Because I mean, it's people don't know about it.
Right.
I do a lot more because of Austin, but I just like what you just mentioned. It just seems like there's so much you have to be a lookout for.
It's a pretty corrupt like industry, like one of the most corrupt, I would say. Yeah, it's pretty hard. A lot of people don't know about it. And then people, they're also like, oh, like not just to me, but to anyone who's made it. They're like, oh, like, why didn't you make it sooner? It's like, well, the industry is like horrible. So that might have something to do with it.
Right.
But it's just a lot of like, yeah, I was saying in my last podcast, like it's a lot about money. Like if you have a lot of money, you'll get further ahead. I mean, that's kind of the same in like any genre, but music especially, because you have to pay for like, you know, music videos and photo shoots and promo and radio and, you know, so like if you have a head start, like those people kind of take priority over like people who don't come from a lot of money.
Yeah,
right.
So
that
there's
makes sense.
Because all that stuff is just so important to building out the brand, right? So if you can't build a brand, because people no longer gravitated towards just the song. Like it takes so much more than that to actually captivate somebody. But like what you're saying, it takes a lot of money and upstart to be able to go shoot a video, to, you know, build out whatever. And it's a lot of work. And then labels a lot of times, like the way that, like the corrupt part of that, right, is they'll take advantage of the fact, knowing that somebody who doesn't have, you know, much to really do that, they'll be like, oh, well, I'll give you the money to do that. Yeah. But you have to pay that back. And if you're, and then if you don't make that money, then you owe them. Yeah. And then it's like, so you're in a worse position than you were before, because it's like, okay, maybe your song got heard by some people, but you literally basically are paying them for other people to listen to your music at that point.
That's exactly it.
Yep. See, that's
and it's like, and it's a huge, I mean, and it's like what you're saying though, like it's easier to distribute music now. You've got TuneCore, DistroKid, stuff like that, but they don't have the sort of machine that a label does, where a label can go, okay, well, radio station, you're gonna play this. You put this on your rotation.
Yeah. Like distribution is nothing. That's just like putting your song on iTunes. You could literally get 5 views just because you put it on iTunes or Spotify. Means nothing.
Yep.
Like,
right. It's so easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like the machine behind it. That's also what I was talking about today earlier, is like, if you want to succeed in music, you need a machine behind you. And sometimes that's really difficult to find.
Yeah. That's why a team is so important. Yeah. Like, because you can, if you have a strong team, then you might not necessarily need that label backing. There are people who have done it, but think of the people that are considered independent artists, right?
Macklemore.
Exactly. I was gonna say Macklemore, Chance the Rapper.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I guess you got Russ now. Unpopular opinion, I don't like Russ. But yeah, you do have, like, you've got those people, but yeah, they're not.
You know, and speaking of which, how is it, so for your distribution, for what you're doing, what is your angle on it? How are you trying to crack that machine, or what are you kind of trying to build from?
I have a record label now, but I didn't. Like, I did my first EP when I was like 9. And I'm 30 now, so that was a long time ago. So I just got a label when I was like 27 or 28. No, I think I was 28. Yeah. So it's like fairly new, right? And we're an indie label. So like we have like, you know, they're amazing. I'm sticking with them for like ever, and they're awesome, but it's still an indie label, whereas a major label has a bigger machine, right? But at the same time, I'd rather be with people who like believe me and see my vision and who are able to put money in, rather than like a major label putting, you know, more money in, but trying to like change you as an artist.
Oh my God. It sounds like this conversation is you know how many times he and I, Austin, have had this conversation back and forth about that's exactly what he says. And that's exactly his attitude. And I'm always like, but if you had the opportunity, it's the age old thing about, okay, do you kind of tweak yourself? And I don't say change, because I don't advocate for that, but tweaking yourself so that more people can hear your music, as opposed to, you know, the no tweaking and less people hearing your music, depending on, you know, where you want to go. And I don't mean it necessarily popularity wise. I just meant the fact that you want people to hear your music, to hear your passion.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal.
And so, you know, and that's a catch-22 between, well, if I do things slightly different, then I can get a little further ahead. But am I selling my soul out, you know, quote unquote, to get that? And it's hard, because you know, there's a line that you can go up to, and a lot of times most people have to cross it, and then they're really not who they were when they started. And that's, you know, that's unfortunate.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there are artists who have, quote, sold their soul to be on a major label, but some of them aren't even famous. Like, you know what I mean? Like that happens and you're still in the same position. So like, it's just very, like I said, corrupt. Like you can do everything a major label says and they could be putting millions into you and it could still go nowhere. Like that happens all the time. Just go to any major label roster and look at all their artists. Yeah. They're getting so much money thrown into them and like, we still don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Right. You only know like maybe 3 or 4 names off of that roster, but it's stacked. That's why leverage is so important. Like going into those meetings and those deals.
Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. What type of dog do you have?
I have 2. I'm really sorry.
What kind?
Can we edit that out?
What kind of dog do you have? Oh yeah, we're a dog family. So
we love dogs. Yeah, what type of dog do you have?
Yeah, a Pomeranian and a Cavalier.
Oh, okay. Nice. My mom used to have a Pomeranian.
Yeah?
Oh, actually, she still does. She outlived.
I don't even remember.
I don't. But yeah, no, because she outlived all the other animals.
Your mom?
Yes.
As you can tell, there's a split household. My current wife is not his mom, and we had like, you know, it was we have the 4 kids, and they're all within 5 years of age. But we have 2 and 2, boy, girl. So it's I enjoy it when I can make fun of his mom.
Right. Well, the Pomeranian. The Pomeranian outlived all the other ones, and she's got to be.
Yeah, they have a long lifespan. They can live up to like 19, 20 years.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got to be up there, like maybe 15.
So remember when I told you that this show would head off in a tangent? I promised you at one point it would. This is that one point. Now there may be more, but this for sure was that one.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah. Anyway, well, okay, getting back. So you've got how long has the current single been out?
It's been out since May.
Oh, great. That was perfect, right? At COVID. Just like smack in the middle when everything was starting to build up.
I know. It was really horrible. It was the worst time of my life.
Yeah, because I mean, I know I did listen to your other ones, like one of your other, I think it was one of the interviews, and you were talking about how you were lined up to do opening shows and stuff like that, and then smack, boom, nothing.
Exactly. So
that was going to be my question.
Yeah, that was what I heard it, because actually I heard the disappointment in your voice. I could just kind of hear the crushing of, I finally, I had it lined up and then no. So.
Yeah, I know. It's like a false start. I mean, like I was saying again earlier, is that COVID has like ruined the whole world, and like there's much more important things than my music career, but it still sucks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you were building up, and I mean, it's all relative, and it depends on people's perspectives. Yes, of course, it's the horrible things going on, but there's also a lot of times people don't necessarily care about what's going on unless it's affecting them, and that's okay. Sometimes it's not.
And the self and the individual is important. I mean, all society is just a composition of everybody's self, so everybody at some level has to think about themselves and how they're being affected.
And the hopeless romantic in me and the eternal optimist, as I say it, I'm immediately thinking that, well, what if you had a song that would actually be inspiring to somebody, and now they won't hear it because of all this stuff going on? That's how my mind works. That's literally how my mind works, where that the ultimate quote unquote dreamer, where I'm thinking that how good of what the music could have done, and the COVID is now going to ruin that, and then someone who is going to be inspired. Yeah, that's what my wife has to live with right there, is that thought process.
No, I have that too. It's like, well, like I said, like, I mean, yeah, like I charted top 100 on radio in the States, and that's amazing, obviously. But because we didn't get to do a lot of promotion because of COVID, like I have maybe 3,000 streams on Spotify and like maybe 3,000 on Apple Music, which is like pretty minimal for someone who is on top 100 on the radio. But that's all because we couldn't do promo in the States because the borders are closed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we talk about momentum. I talk about that with my coaching and stuff, about momentum is something that's really hard to create. It just, you don't know when it's going to happen, but when you get it, you just have to ride that out as hard and as long as you can, because it doesn't come around. Mm-hmm. And when you have these unexpected things like the virus and stuff, it just ruins it.
Yeah. Well, first things first, congratulations on the top 100.
Absolutely. Big deal.
That's a big deal. It's a very big deal.
Yes, it's still a big deal for sure.
Huge deal. To me, that's more important than Spotify. I know that it's not technically because radio to me is just so dear to my heart. Like, I know that things are moving away from that, but if I ever heard my song on radio, that's going to impact me way more than anything. Like, even if it doesn't actually add up to something, that's going to mean way more to me. It just had sentimental value.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are still listening to radio. Like, I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, streaming is like the way, but like, there's a lot of people who are still listening to radio. So, I mean, it's still good.
Oh, yeah, it's still huge. Yeah, radio, I think radio still weighted the highest as far as charting goes. Obviously, besides selling a physical single.
Yeah. Okay, you guys techno speak.
Yeah, no, radio is still hugely important.
You know what's more important, though?
What?
Is the fact that with all this COVID, all the tattoo places got shut down. That's more important, because I can tell that I can see you've got a lot of work done.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, see, my wife got me addicted, and that was actually more of a. I know I'm going off on another tangent, but yeah, that was actually, I always see when I see the tattoos, I was late in life. I didn't get mine until my first till I was probably actually till I was 30. My dad always thought it was a way for the government to track people. I was like, okay. So, which technically is true, but at this point, that is the least way that they're going to track you. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, I had that was why, because I'm assuming. Okay, never mind. That's a subject we'll go into another time. I was going to ask, so what's your next one going to be? What's your next tattoo?
No, I think I'm done for a bit. Like, I have my foot, I have all my hand, like all my fingers, my hands, my arms, my ribs, my back, my stomach. Like, I think I'm good for a bit.
Yeah, you got all the major coverage, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So when is the next song? What was the plan for? I mean, I'm assuming plans changed, but what was the next one?
The next song's called Apocalypse, and it's about the end of the world, and I wrote it 1.5 years ago, so talk about foreshadowing.
All right. You're ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so I think it'll be out in the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'm hoping, hopefully sooner. My label hasn't given me a date yet, but yeah, I think that will do well because of the name.
Yeah.
Are they going to try to do... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm hoping like we can get some online traction with that.
Are they going to try to do any of the new, like, I noticed that there's like trying to do a lot of these, they're trying to get concerts, whether they're, not necessarily live concerts, but the online stuff. I mean, I wonder if they're going to work that into the same thing of having opening acts and things of that sort, because at least you can get out there more, I mean, the more exposure, obviously, the better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that would be awesome, but I think as a new artist, it might be a little hard, right? Because no one knows who I am yet. So that might be a little difficult, but definitely like as things start to open up. I mean, I know there is a Canadian artist, Alan Raymond. He's super awesome. He lives in LA. Do you guys know him?
I think I've heard the name, but I don't know. I wouldn't be able to name a song.
Yeah, he's from Canada, but he's super popular, but he lives in LA. But anyways, he did like a drive-in concert, and I thought that was pretty cocool.
Yeah, I've been seeing that stuff pop up. That is a cool idea. I don't know where they're doing it, to be honest, because I was like trying to visualize it. Like, dang, where is that? Because like obviously living in LA and stuff, and then I live in a very congested part of LA. So I'm like, man, where are they doing this?
Yeah,
where do they have that much space where they can just put this many cars and then do that?
Well, a lot of times it's also the parking lots of all the venues that aren't being used.
Right, that's true.
That would actually be hosting it. You could do it in those venues
instead of having a concert in the Forum. Have it outside the Forum,
like Hollywood Bowl, things like that. That would definitely.
That's smart. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's not going to be like this forever.
True.
But I think you just have to like make the best of it while you can.
What are you doing to kind of keep yourself busy in the meantime? As far as, I mean, obviously, if you're not touring,
Yeah. Well, I'm a full-time music teacher, so I have 45 students that I teach every week. So it's busy.
That's awesome. I bet.
Yeah.
Do you tell them that you like write your own music and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, because I have to, like, I own my own business, like my own teaching business. So like before COVID, when I travel, like I'd go to LA or Atlanta or Memphis or wherever, like quite often. So I have to tell them that, like, look, like I'm a musician, like, and not saying there's anything wrong with just being a teacher, but like I'm not just a teacher. I have a whole career I'm doing. So like I always have to tell them, like, oh, I'm going to be traveling here or doing this video or this photo shoot. So they're pretty understanding. I think they think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would think that's cool if I was a student. I'd be like, oh, I'd be like bragging. I'd be like, yeah, when my music teacher's like
charted.
Right. I'd be like, what has your music teacher done? Like,
yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. So like, I mean, some of the parents get like irritated when I have to cancel lessons, but at the end of the day, I think they prefer it because then I can give them like advice.
Yeah. You have such, I mean, that part of it is a lot of what I do, the workshops and the coaching revolves around perspective and points of view. And it would seem to me that you having so much more of your background for your students would be so valuable to be able to not only just, the musically, but also if any of them start to show any signs and as far as flourishing and just, like you said, giving them advice. I think that would be something parents, well, there I am. It's that internal optimist, but I would think parents would love that. I mean, that would be something that
for sure.
Not the ones that complain about, oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. You mean that we can't dump our kid for the hour and a half? You canceled on that? Like, that's not a music lesson. That's not what it's supposed to be. Right. It's not babysitting.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I have this vision when I'm world famous and like touring the world and it's my own tour. I can bring up some of my favorite students on stage. That would be cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Speaking of touring, like, do you travel a lot, or have you traveled a lot? I guess I should say.
Yeah, I was traveling a lot. I was going to LA I really want to move to California. That's my goal.
Are you sure? It's on fire right now.
I know. We have all your smoke.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
That makes sense.
Vancouver. We're told not to even go outside right now. So
we
that's
apologize
pretty crazy.
for that.
No, it's crazy. But because we're only 2 hours apart on a plane.
Right.
So we're pretty close, but yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, the smoke is like crazy and the fires are crazy, and I'm just hoping California is okay. But like Australia recovered, so everyone will be okay.
Yeah, that's true. I know we started with it, and it feels like we're going to end with it. That's kind of scary. Of course, then again, 2020, who knows? So
I know, right? 2020.
Yeah,
right.
Be careful if you want to move to LA, because it's one of those things that sometimes be careful what you wish for. Because although there's some awesome areas, there's also the ones that you're like, oh, this is not what I thought about when I said Southern California.
Like, give me an example. I want to know.
There's just, well, it depends on, like, you hear areas of, like, say, Santa Monica. And Santa Monica is a really nice area if you have money. If you don't, if you're a normal person, then Santa Monica is pretty much just homeless and just and you kind of go, it's a nice place to visit, but you don't necessarily want to stay there. But for outsiders, you don't hear that. You're hearing, like, Santa Monica and
LA, the city is built up to like this like mythical status, right?
Yeah.
So you think it's going to be really cool. And for a while it is. But then once you kind of get settled into it and you start living your everyday life, it's really crowded. The people
certain areas. I mean, it all comes down to money, as always.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Most people aren't from LA that live in LA.
Yeah.
And a lot of times though, it leads to that. How do I put? I don't want to sound too negative about it. I am not a big fan of LA.
He's jaded now. He's been down here a couple years, and he's.
Where did you live before?
It was like a small town in Northern California.
Well, basically the Sacramento area in California.
Okay.
Like if you know Sacramento, that's great. But if you know, like, take Lake Tahoe, it's down the way from Lake Tahoe. So
some of LA is awesome. Like, I mean, there are reasons that you obviously should go to LA. But LA is also not a great place to end up. It's a really good place to go, advance your career, and do what you got to do. And then leave if you have the opportunity.
Well, and that's true. We've also talked about, you mentioned, I think, Nashville and Memphis. Yeah. I mean, there's actually some other hot spots right now that we've talked about with Austin going,
I'm considering
hey, what if you had a shot at going to, because...
Or Nashville is actually...
I mean, there is... That's why I was asking about the traveling, because you've seen other towns and...
Totally. I don't think I'd want to live in LA, but just close to LA.
Yeah,
exactly. When you
that's
can
a
be
good.
within
That's
the
a good
working
place
out.
to like temper it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I imagine that if I lived a little bit farther outside of actually being there,
Yeah.
it would be much more tolerable.
Yeah, as long as you can make it in
Yeah.
within an hour because of traffic and stuff like that for when you need it. So whenever
Yeah.
you move, just let us know. We will give you all the
Yes.
pointers. We'll give you tours when you come down here. We can set you all up. We can make
Oh
sure
my
that
God,
you.
that would be amazing because I don't know anyone. So that'd
Yeah,
be
now
great.
you do. Now you do.
The biggest thing about this is actually the positive thing about LA.
Keep going with it, Austin.
The positive thing about LA is if you have to make friends, because if you can make friends and you have people
Yeah.
that you see all the time or whatever, it's totally fine because
Yeah.
you'll have your circle and you have your support circle. But if it's kind of just you against the world in LA, that's pretty tough. It's like New York. People just
Yeah.
don't say
You know
that,
what?
but everybody acknowledges that if you go to New York by yourself, it's a lot. It's the
Poison
same
had a
thing in
song
LA.
about that. Fallen Angel.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. See? Told you hair metal. I know too much of it. Way too much of it. So,
Yeah, no, I think for sure moving anywhere where you don't have friends is hard. But
True.
I mean, I love Canada and I love our healthcare and I love our nature and I love our lack of guns. But like, there's not much going on in Canada. Like I
Right.
said, I love it, but it's really quite boring.
yeah. I could,
I love how those are anti-characteristics of America.
I know.
Like,
Well,
that's not-
I actually grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I literally went from like a highly metropolis, highly can't speak.
Highly populated.
Okay, we'll go highly populated metropolis. Then I went to the Sacramento, which I call kind of like the mid-level, which is okay, but a great place to raise a family, that area. And then I actually just the beginning of the year moved here in LA, so I've seen all that. But we're actually, my wife and I are planning probably the end of the year of getting out of California and going closer to you, go up to probably like Washington. So
Okay.
it's interesting how you where you're at in your point in life and where you live makes such a difference, and people just you kind of don't realize how important it is. So
I hope you like rain because Washington's right next to Vancouver and all it
Yeah.
does is rain.
my wife runs like very hot, so overcast, cold, rainy. We don't get depressed by it. We're totally cool
Oh,
with that.
wow. Well,
Yeah.
then you should just move to Vancouver because it rains here 7 months out of the year or
Ugh.
more.
See, she would love that.
I like the rain.
Yep. See, so
Let-
if you hopefully at some
It's
point.
likely more 8 months out of the year.
So just,
Even better.
Yeah, it's funny because hopefully you won't miss the rain because in LA you're not gonna get much of it.
I hate the rain. I'm so over
So you're
the
good
rain.
then.
Oh, then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yep. You're gonna be spending all your time on the beaches. You're gonna be like within about an hour of a beach, basically. So
That's true. I want to
Yeah.
pivot the conversation a little bit back to the music stuff because there was
Yeah.
because I see that we're getting a little bit farther in the time.
told you.
And I had some questions
Okay.
about that. When
Yeah.
you're writing your music, right? What is hitting you first? Like, are you thinking of melodies, or is it more of a lyrical idea, or how is it kind of forming together in the beginning, or does it alternate? Is it just kind of how you feel?
It alternates. Sometimes I'll have a really cool lyric in my head, or sometimes I'll just write lyrics, or sometimes I'll have a melody stuck in my head, or sometimes they'll come at the same time. So there's no formula. It just happens.
That's cool. Just
I'm
letting it
also, I'm not one of those people who likes to I mean, there's a lot of musicians who'll be like, oh, well, you should probably change your belief system. But I'm not one of those people who believes in sitting down and forcing a song. I like to have it just come to me.
Yeah, I agree. That's the most natural way. Anytime I've ever forced myself to write, you could tell. It feels,
Yes,
at least to me, you could
exactly.
tell. It feels very
but does
this
it
wasn't
ever,
real.
But does it ever kind of evolve though? Because with the I equate that to some of the stuff I've had to do with schooling and just papers and things of that that I've had to write. And a lot of times you start, you forced it to get started, and then all of a sudden something will hit, like an inspiration will hit. Does that ever happen?
I have an answer for that, but I want to hear your answer first.
Oh, that's never happened. What's your answer?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. I
Okay,
mean,
so then-
maybe it's happened once or twice, maybe. But generally, for me, I'm gonna automatically have a distrust for what I forced myself to write, so I probably won't revisit it
that
in
makes
the
sense.
way that you're describing.
Oh, and I have an important question I need to ask you. Are you as much a perfectionist as most artists? Where you have to keep
yeah.
tinkering with the song and then it's never done?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But and my producers usually don't let me. They're like, no, it's done.
See?
Yeah, but
I
I'm
try,
my own.
I try to tell him that. I'm I try to act as the producer just in that quote unquote role of just saying, it's good, just stop, it's fine.
Yeah, definitely like co-writing is like I believe co-writing is some of the best songs come from co-writing. I think when we're writing completely by ourselves, I mean obviously amazing songs come, but also you get really stuck in your own way.
Yeah, that's true, and you can be in your own head and then potentially make something that was great worse. So
Yes.
I do agree with that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was a technical question. It's kind of a simple one. Do you write physically, like pen to pad, or do you like to type in your phone, or how do you do that? Because I know I always ask artists that because they feel very passionate about generally, yeah.
Okay, so I used to only do pen and paper. But now I actually have found a new love for writing in my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I used to do pen and paper, but now I'm more so in my phone. But if I'm like doing a writing session with someone, I'll usually do pen and paper.
I get you.
That's a little more old school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there's like people generally they like that feeling, the physicality of it, of letting it actually come out.
And that's a whole nother episode of the physiological aspects of it and everything else that can go along with it. So
Yeah, totally.
that's cool. Okay. Well, great. I know. Well, actually, that's funny because that's how quickly time flies by here. So.
Yeah, it went fast.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Was there anything else that you have? I mean, we were talked about when your when your song drops. Let us know because we'll actually then you can come back on and we can talk about it. And
Yeah, definitely. No, just make sure everyone listens to Real Love. You can find it on every streaming platform in the world. And then my new song Apocalypse should be out. Super excited about that. It's like a dance song, but it's about the end of the world. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
And then, yeah, just follow me on Instagram at I am Schara. I'm really focusing on my Instagram, growing that up.
Yeah, you got to get. I know the social media is so important. Talk about double-edged swords. That's the double-edged sword because half the time I feel like I don't want to check on that notice. I don't want to be notified. I don't want that alert. And on the other hand, I'm like, I have to check on it. I have to respond to it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah,
your social media looks great, by the way. I say that because we've talked about it. We've talked about it outside of the podcast, but it looks very good. So, like, definitely,
thanks.
it looks really, really good.
Yeah, definitely going in the right direction with that one because you see, like we talked about, even with the music itself, sometimes you're like, it's a fine line because you want to give them who you are, but you also have to make sure that you're giving them basically product. And it's hard to be able to balance it where if it's too much of one, not enough of the other, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, it's totally hard. And like people have such a short attention span on social media that like you only can grab them for 1 minute. And I was saying this earlier that to my friend that like, how often do you see someone's good picture or good like little 20-second video? Like, do you immediately go check out their music? Because I don't. Do you?
Yeah.
No, not usually.
No.
It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I'm finding that you have to kind of draw them in with something else and then eventually they'll go to your music. But like honestly, like I don't know anyone who's like really likes someone's picture on social media and is like, I'm gonna go check out their music. Like I just don't know, like that just doesn't happen.
Right.
And I think it's interesting for those artists, for like basically singers, songwriters, just audio artists, I should say, because it's a physical medium. And you're right. I mean, it's just the you have pictures. There's probably people that follow you, like you for your personality, for your looks, and don't even realize your songs or you're singing.
Exactly. No,
you know what I mean? And you're like,
true.
okay, that's great, but this is not exactly what I was shooting for. So
yeah, no, until you're like on like a really like hip happening or hip happening playlist, like they're not gonna follow you for your music if you're a new artist. You have to capture them in a different way, and then once they like are hooked, then they'll go to your music. Unless, like I said, you're in a really popular playlist or like on Billboard or whatever.
Yeah, that's right there for anybody listening and they're wondering about how to get put on. That's the golden rule right there. Playlists. That was she was spitting game right there. That's the new way to come up right there is playlists. Yeah. Those are huge. Yeah. Those dominate everything. Like the one that comes to mind, Rap Caviar or whatever. That's everybody. It sets everybody's taste as far as modern day rap or whatever. And if you don't listen to that, you're probably missing out, which is crazy because there's a disconnect between that and radio. But that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other topic. But,
I mean, totally. Playlists are like where it's at, 100%. I think it's important as for me anyway, as a like pop mainstream artist. Like for anyone who's in pop, like you need playlists, you need radio, you need videos, like you need all of it. Whereas a lot of different genres, you can kind of just stick to just playlists or just radio or just whatever. But like pop, you kind of need it all.
Right. Different demographics and what they expect of the artist and all that stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, cool. Okay, so how soon are you moving to LA? So that way we can make sure we have time on our calendar. So when you need it, you can let us know. Even if you're just visiting, you can be like, okay, I need someone to show me around. So I'm sure one of us will be available.
Yeah, I mean, when the apocalypse is over, I hope to come.
Right. Maybe see who wins the election first, and then be like, gauge it.
Yeah, you might want to stick it. You might want to stay up there for a little bit longer.
I know, right? I know. That's what I'm thinking too.
I mean, either way, you might want to stay up there a little bit.
I'm like, not to get political, whichever your views are. It's kind of like, yeah. I would hate to have more. Let's just say I'd hate to have more status quo. That would be a horrible, 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 horrible result.
Oh yeah, no. Like, I mean, being in Canada, like, I mean, I'm anti-Trump. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it. Like,
no, that's fine.
Yeah, we've spoken out against Trump quite a few times.
We hold on to it because the political thing. I'm like, I've been waiting and waiting to have a political episode because it's just there's going to be so many. But
oh my god, can I be on one, please? Because I'm very opinionated on politics.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Let's do it. I'm very opinionated too. I've been more quiet this episode than I generally am when I interject a lot of things that'll be off the cuff.
And it's a good one because he has that idealistic aspect of it. And I have seen your stuff, and I can see you've got definitely a conviction. So that can be very good. I mean, you're more or less on the same page. But that it's funny. The show itself is basically we end up at the same place, but coming at it from different points of view. And that's the point. Oh my god,
that would be amazing. I would love to do that.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. We'll pencil it in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
No problem.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and we'll get in touch for making that one again because I know that people are now going to be like, oh, you got to have her back on. So cool.
Maybe if it just happens to time up with your single release, just for just by accident, like
wink, nudge, nudge.
Totally, that'd be awesome. Cool. Well, I'll be in touch and add me on Facebook and stuff.
Will do.
For sure, yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, she actually left. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So that was Schara. So that that was cool. That was good. I'm glad that went. That I wasn't sure how that was going to go, but that was a cool conversation. Fun. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And
definitely check her out. The music's awesome. It's seriously good. I'm giving it my stamp. It was awesome.
Actually have somebody, when you talk about pop and mainstream, all of a sudden, of course, you're thinking, but it really is one of those ones where there's some that stand out. And this is, hopefully she'll get a break. Hopefully she'll catch a break and it'll work out for her. So, so remember, think more, care more, live more. And remember, you can change your life. We can change the world one decision at a time. Anything else, Hassan?
Nope.
No? All right. We'll talk to you soon.